Hi, and welcome to another edition, a special edition of For Your Review. I'm your host, Scott Birmingham, and this is another one of our one-on-ones where we get an opportunity to talk to somebody in the industry of filmmaking. And today we're lucky enough to have we'll throw out the word screenwriter here, to Dean McCreary, who's down in Los Angeles and joining us via Skype. How you doing?
Good, Scott. Good to talk to you. Hey, everybody.
So in case anybody's confused, it's written right on his cap. Yes, he is a writer. We were talking about how you've been down in L.A. for about 13 years. When you went down to L.A., did you know that's what you were going to want to do, or did you fall upon it? Tell us a little bit about that.
No, Scott, I actually, I was married and working for a video game company. I actually have a degree in illustration. And when the marriage dissolved, I just moved to LA. I just kind of wanted to get out of San Francisco. And I hadn't spent much time with my sister, who's 4 years older than me, my sister Lori, and she owned a production company down here and said, hey, once you come down here, you can sleep on my couch for a year. Well, that's not what she said, but that's what happened. And I just kind of I fell into screenwriting. When my writing partner, Chester Hastings, moved down here from San Francisco as well, we just started telling each other kind of ghost stories about traveling, and we were up late night drinking scotch and scaring ourselves, and we ended up writing a script for an actor that we always loved and admired. There was things we wanted to see him do in film that he never did. So we wrote this script and gave it to my sister, and we were all glee, joyful, like, oh, wait, we read this. So we handed her this 186-page behemoth, and she thought, oh, not my brother too, you too, everybody has a script down here. Well, she read it and loved it, and she gave it to her producing partner, and without the cover page on it, he read it, and he liked it, loved the character, and wanted to play it. So right off the bat, this never happens, but right off the bat, we had something that was optioned. Of course, after years and years of development, we finally got it down to a manageable 110 pages. But by that time, the actor was too old to play the character.
Now, we should say that your sister is Lori McCreary, who was actually up for an Oscar for producing Invictus. She works with Morgan Freeman, and their company is Revelations Entertainment, based down in Los Angeles. How many actually are part of this group, Revelations Entertainment? Is it a very large company, very small?
No, it's really small, very small. I think there's probably 3 full-time staff, my sister Morgan, producing partners, and then they have a lot of production assistants. But that's pretty much it. They're not a studio; they are a production entity. They have one of the best development people in the business, Tracy Mercer, who is just a font of knowledge of all things film. She's just incredible with story. But yeah, it's small.
So you have the script. Several people read it. They love it. What happens next?
Well, here was the thing. Chester and I knew nothing about screenwriting. Nothing. Literally, we sat down with Screenwriting 101 and Final Draft. No, I don't think we used Final Draft. We were using Screenwriter or something. And sort of taught ourselves a format, read a lot of scripts. And then we did this script. And once Morgan was attached, it was very strange. We had agents calling us up. You know, hey, come have lunch. Let's talk about your representation. And we ended up going with Gersh, the Gersh agency. We had a 2-hour meeting, and at the end of it, they were pitching Gersh to us, and we just thought, wow, this is great. And I asked Sandra, my agent, point blank. I said, is this because Morgan's attached? And she went, no, this is one of the best first acts I've ever read. So you guys have a natural voice. Let's continue to develop your career. So that was good. It was a good starting point. So what else?
No, this was 13 years ago that this all happened?
No, this was in 99.
Okay. So you've been down there for a couple of years before this happened.
I've been down here for a couple of years, kind of floundering, didn't know what I wanted to do. I grew up in the theater, so I was going out on a lot of auditions and doing the cattle calls and did a couple of movies of the week, was on a television show for a little bit, and just kind of knew I wanted to be in the industry, but I wanted to more from a selfish standpoint, I wanted to write screenplays because I wanted to sit in a dark theater with a big tub of popcorn and watch my movies, watch stuff that I enjoy.
Now, have you felt that this has come pretty naturally to you, or is it always this big stressful thing that you're about to leap into when you have an idea and you want to put it on paper, and then it's kind of like the love it or hate it feedback that you get?
Well, here's the thing. Chester and I, we were told early on, write something commercial, write something we can sell, write something we can sell. And we never sort of fell into that, which is probably why it's taken 10 years to become an overnight success. We wrote a lot of scripts of films that we wanted to see. One of the films that we wrote, the second script we wrote was about the bombing of the Los Angeles Times building in 1910. It was the equivalent of 9/11. It was the crime of the century. It was a beautiful story. We found this amazing twist doing all this research. We submitted the script to our agent and our manager, and they loved it, thought it was beautiful. Started sending it out. Imagine Entertainment, scot-free. We had all these amazing meetings, and every single person said, fantastic script, period piece, we can't touch it. I was like, what? What do you mean? All the films that we hold up and that we give awards to, most of the time they're period pieces, but it was a weird climate at the time. People were just afraid. They didn't want to touch anything that they couldn't understand the formula or see the marketing potential right off the bat.
Well, we'll get into kind of like your latest news, if you will, of what's happened. For those who are really interested and they have a passion, and I say this because, having worked with the Reno Film Festival, we've had actors come out, and when they know that we've had like that year a screenwriter workshop, they will all go to that screenwriter workshop. And there's something to be said about there's this nugget to be found, or at least sought after, in screenwriting. And how can you tell whether or not, this is really something you're cut out to do, or you might want to look someplace else for that?
It's a really, that's such a great question, because everybody has a story to tell. Everybody here in Hollywood has a script, and I'm sure people watching this believe they have a script inside of them. I've always been a storyteller. I grew up making movies. I was fascinated by film, but to become a screenwriter, you have got to immerse yourself in screenwriting. That means you have to read everything that's ever been done. You have to watch movies from an analytical point of view and look how the story's been told. You have to really become a student of it. And what's going to happen is when you start writing, once you understand just the structure of how a screenplay is built, when the characters start to speak to you, when the characters start to act and do things that you never anticipated, I know this was for me and for all my other friends that write, it starts to take on a life of its own. And if you can get to that point where that happens, you're going to be hooked. I know people that have sold one script and have never sold anything after that. I know people that have not sold anything and continue to write scripts. I know people with 25, 30 scripts that have never been produced, but they just keep writing, and it's just something. It's like love. You just know when you know.
Tell me this: what if? Well, what's the difference? And probably you can clarify it. Sometimes they say it's not only what you know, but sometimes it's who you know. In terms of a lot of people can write and maybe they're really gifted, but if you're not running this across the wrong sets of hands, maybe you're kind of whittling your day away.
Yeah, you can waste a lot of time. It really to make it as a screenwriter, to make it in Hollywood, to have any sort of modicum of success with what you do, you've got to have the right connections. You need to know the right people. I was very fortunate to be able to get our first script to Morgan because of my sister. However, she's not stupid. She wouldn't have given that script to Morgan if it wasn't something she thought was valuable, and something that was of the caliber of films he does. So I think Chester and I sort of backed into our vocation, as it were, as screenwriters. You have got to come out, if you're going to be a filmmaker, if you want to be a screenwriter, you've got to make connections. We've spent the last 10 years doing sweat equity, taking and making meetings from every major studio, every mini major, every production company that we could find, even independent producers, and just sort of formulating relationships, giving out writing samples, giving out scripts that we wrote. We've got a lot of them. We've been writing just about every single day for the last 10 years, not only because we have to, because we want to. We want a career in this. And the relationships that we built have really sort of figured into what just happened with Paramount. But the thing is, once an opportunity presents itself, you have got to be good at what you do. And you have to be a master of your world. You have to understand the script that you wrote, the characters that you build. You have to understand them from a godlike perspective. You have got to be good at what you do, because I'll tell you what, people will shut that door even faster than they opened it if you don't know what you're doing.
Let's talk just for a brief second, and then we're going to go into the latest news here. You have a writing partner.
Yes.
There's got to be some balance in that. A lot of people like to kind of hog that and do it themselves, and they're the creator of the whole thing. So to have someone there that you're working with, one, how do you find that person? And two, how do you both kind of come to a thing that, you know what, this is gelling really well for us to work together like this?
Yeah. I have wanted to kill my writing partner on many occasions, but he has another child now, so he's 2, so I can't really do that. Collaboration is the name of the game in Hollywood. You're going to get rewritten. As a screenwriter, your scripts are going to get rewritten. Akiva Goldsman gets rewritten. People, your friend George Gallo has gotten rewritten. It's going to happen. You've got to get over yourself and your own ego. And I know this is kind of hard. It's not a baby. You're not giving birth to a baby. You cannot make your story so precious that you don't want it touched by other people. The value of having a writing partner is you've got instantaneous feedback as to whether an idea is good or not. A lot of times writers fall into the trap of they fall in love with a scene or a sequence or a character because it feels right. And 9 times out of 10 it feels right because it's cliche, because you've seen it before, because it's part of your whole visual and I'm going to say your library of knowledge as a burgeoning screenwriter or as a storyteller. You've seen these elements before. Now, with a writing partner, if something that you think is funny or dramatic or that works, you get instantaneous feedback as to whether or not it's an original idea and it's good or it's cliche and we've seen it before.